The Meru arrival where we are is very much attached to the Bantu migration. The Bantus are namely Kikuyus, Ambians, Merus, Kisis, and Ruya, the ones that are designated pure Bantus in Kenya.
Uh-huh.
The Bantus migrated from Congo forest,
Mm-hmm.
that is from Congo, and they came through Tanzania,
Mm-hmm.
the southern end of Tanzania.
Mm-hmm.
It is while they were in Tanzania that they met a very strong tribe fighting.
Mm-hmm.
This was the Ngoni. And the Ngoni dispatched the Bantus
Mm-hmm.
because they were not fighters. They were running away from a harsh environment, and then they find another one. Now, instead of going backwards, a group of the Bantus proceeded to the eastern coast of Tanzania.
Mm-hmm.
Currently, it is known to be closer to, very close to Zanzibar, and they hired the canoes and entered it. They wanted to evade this fight in Tanzania, and that they rested in an island called Mboa, MBWA, Mboa. This is the island suspected to be the current Manda Island, the one that is off Malindi. And they stayed there well, and later this island was not providing what they wanted. It was not rich enough to do the farming or to provide food. So they started moving out of what they planned on how to move. But there were no big ships to move them out. There were these small canoes. So they moved in group, and one group managed to cross over from the island to the mainland at night. That is the group we call in Meru Njuri. They are the Njurus. The other group, after the canoes went back to pick another group, it proceeded to land during the morning hours when the sun is about to rise. The sky is red. We call them tuna. So after they landed, those ones, they went back to the island again and picked the last group, which now landed on the mainland kukiwa mchana, ikaitwa Njero. Ndio nasikianga mpaka waleo kuna watu wanaitwa Njero, Mtune, ni that kind of movement. So when they reached the mainland, that is at the coast, they were still yearning to move because the coast region looked like that island. But then there is a group of Bantus that became very lazy. They said to us, we are not going to move again. They spread themselves along the coast, and they started now yearning for these coconut juice, coconut dani, and these are the Bantus called Mijikendas. They are called Mijikendas because they formed themselves into two small villages, which today we call them Kayas, Kayas. Like an example is Kaya Kauma. You find them north of the island, that is Mombasa, and you find them south. But then the greater part of the group moved up, so they crossed through the Yatta Plateau, which now covers the current, because that time there were no whites. So Kenya was not demarcated into provinces and all that. It was just a block in Africa, but with a lot of animals. So a group of them, which we now call Kambas, and that is a group of Bantus called hunters. So they remained by it, and the region now called Machakos, Kitui, Mwinge. They came all the way to Tharaka in Meru. Those were hunters, and they are the Kambas. Then we still proceeded, the others proceeded on. So when they came to this island, the highlands, slopes of Mount Kenya, they found a very fertile ground. So the Meros were the first now to settle on the island. They said, we are not going anymore. We wanted to be farmers. We have found very fertile land to farm, and therefore they occupied that space where now we are. Because of the mountain, they did not proceed from Meru through Laikipia. They went through Embu. Still around the mountain. The mountain is a conical mountain. It is a volcanic mountain. So it is still going down the mountain. The whole land is still fertile. Ambience became weak, They also settled. Then the Kikuyus went to occupy Kirinyaga and Njeri, the two areas that are touching Mount Kenya. And that was the migration of this Bantu, and therefore they settled. After settling now, any other movement from there to Muranga, Kiambu, that was for the developmental purposes. That is when they have already started farming. They are looking for areas where they can sell their produce, and that was not a part of migration. Migration ended in Kirinyaga, Njeri. Hii ingine is spreading. Because you can see even up to today, we are still spreading out. Now there is a group that now, we go back to southern Tanzania. There is a group that now did not follow this one that went to the Indian Ocean. They went towards River Kagera and they entered Uganda. When they entered Uganda, they found the leadership of Kabakas, the traditional Kabakas. We are very harsh. They welcomed them for a while, but they started making them slaves. So one group that became sharp, faster, ran away across towards the Jinja area, and they settled in western Kenya. These are the Baruyas, Abaruya. And that is another group of Bantu that was not very far away from us. Even the language up to today is very. Then there is another group that persisted with the Kabakas, or Karimin. Kukaka, they were now more tortured than even the Baruyas who had ran away, because now they were becoming fewer. So those ones could not run away through where the Ruyas went. They used the shores of Lake Victoria, along the shores from Uganda now towards Tanzania. It's like they are wanting to go back to Tanzania again, but then they remember there is fighting south. That group and some elements of some Meros who reached this island, the mountain called Mount Meru, which is also very productive, and they stayed there. They are still some Meros, they talk Meru. Akazmo badge. That is how they named that mountain near Kilimanjaro, Wakaita Mount Meru. The group that proceeded and left that Kabaj went up to now the Kavirondo Gap. Kavirondo Gap is this one, Lake Victoria in Kenya. They found some rules who had already come from southern Sudan, and the rules were a bit harsh. Bantus generally are not fighters. They don't like fights. Those are tribal fights. So that's how they moved up. Wakakuta now islands, and these are the Kisis. They settled in the Kisis. Another small group was left. They thought these are the people we call currently, yes, yes, madam. They don't know how to oppose. But later they also found that they are being misused. They ran away using the same route that the Kisis used. But reaching the area of this area of Migori now, the current Migori, they settled there instead of going to the island. These are the two Bantu groups called Kuria and the Suba. Suba, because they stayed near the ocean, under the influence of rules, they changed. They started behaving like rules. Most of the culture changed to rules side, even the language. These are people like the Mbadi. You know this Mbadi, the chairman of ODM. Jina mnaona anaitwa Mbadi. Anao, bagini anaongea Kindoruo. It is because of too much influence of rules who are surrounding them. Otherwise, the Subas are Bantus and the Kuria are Bantus. Now, because of too much isolation, then the languages, when they came from Congo, they were speaking similar language. But because of this long historical isolation, the languages started changing. But then up to today, there are quite a number of words that are similar. Like when in Meru you want to tell somebody JKUAT, unamwambia kila ki. Ukienda Kisii wanasema kila kiri. Kisii all animals are E. Yani unasema mburi wanasema emburi. Ng'ombe eng'ombe. Nguku enguku. Then all the names are like Kimeru, but they put that emburi, eng'ombe, enguku, and then Kikuyus again, because of this isolation, because there wasn't now further mingling. That is how we changed a bit. Sisi tunawacha tukisema atiri, na wanasema atiriri. That is simply how the Bantus moved. And that is how the Meros now stopped where we are up to today. None of the groups is more superior than the other. Even the one that was left in the coast, Bantu is Bantu. The Meros were the first to settle. Embu was the second, then the Kikuyus. But the Kikuyus didn't want to stay because of population. They wanted to relocate themselves to have the entire land belonging to them. But they found Maasais in all these regions. So instead of fighting Maasai, because Maasai now is a very serious fighter with his spears, they decided to do the cultivating the land. When they cultivate and there is no nyasi, hakuna chakula ya ng'ombe, Maasai anatoroka. Ndio Maasai waliletwa mpaka Nairobi, wengine wakafukuzwa wakaenda Laikipia, huko upande wa Nanyuki. Wale Kapalo. Hao wa Laikipia walikuwa Kadhari Meru. Ndio hapo unaona majina mpaka wa leo, hata kuna watu wanaitwa Raiboni. Na Raiboni was the king of Maasai. Unakuta watu kama familia yetu Mberia, akina Ntimama was a Mmeru, ni guka yake alikuwa Mmeru, ni kufukuzwa, aliipwa na Maasai wakati walikuwa wanapigana na Meru. Alikuwa huyo guka alikuwa anasema Ntimama Ntiura yetemo Maasai Ntimama